Okay, so let's take a look at the second scenario here in Fleets 2025. This one is first strike. Tensions have been rising in the East China Sea. The PLA has deployed units to Taiwanese cities to crush an insurgency. Excuse me. Western politicians have no choice but to order their naval forces to assist their allies. The Chinese see this as a preemptive first strike and respond accordingly. Notably, the Chinese this time have the higher will at 6 instead of 4 for the U.S. They still have numerical superiority. We're still going to have the same technical superiority. In fact, all the scenarios have this, where the blue player has a search advantage. This time, all the counters are face down with the exception of these Ka-29s. Now, I looked at these Ka-29s and said, whoa, what are they good for? One movement allowance, one combat factor, but no range, so they can't attack. Well, and then that set me looking, hey, am I right about search? And there doesn't seem to be any requirement for units for search. And then I realize they provide a point of defense to the stack they're in. They're hunting subs or ships or whatever, and providing some air defense capability in that manner. Other than that, though, they're kind of targets. Now, what about that one movement allowance? Well, it's in white. And that means that they don't have to refuel. And notably, all dummy counters are in white. Now, these aren't actual dummies. This is an actual plane that would need to refuel normally, but it doesn't have to until it's been revealed. So unless it attacks or is searched for, it could stay up in the air. Is that something unrealistic? Well, one can assume that these planes are fairly low-flying planes, so it wouldn't be safe in a real combat area where they're recognized for them to refuel in air, but they can do it, as long as everything's safe. So I think that's kind of the idea there. Otherwise, though, they have to make it back to their base. And in fact, over here on the carrier, we have bunches of units. Now, we also have a big U.S. carrier, a CVN-X. I guess that's a normal nuclear carrier, but mutated. Some kind of super carrier or something. I cheated a little bit in the setup. There's one sub that's got to be within no more than at least 5 hexes away from the Chinese. And the regular deployment of U.S. forces is on this line or east, but yeah, it's hard for me to think of east and west when I'm looking in Asia. But they have 3 dummies that they're allowed to deploy, and that's part of this force. Well, if only one sub is in the game and it's right up in the front, it's pretty obvious that that's correct, easy to hunt. So I figured I'd cheat and twist it a little bit, give the U.S. the ability to put subs as dummies, which makes a lot of sense to me. Anyway, other special rules in this. The Chinese are worried about what's going on in Taiwan. Yeah, they're intervening there. I'm not sure what that means. We're assuming one China's already taken effect here. It's only 10 years from now. I don't know how likely that is. It's been a long time. But if a revealed UCAV unit is in the Taiwanese city hex, the 3 dotted hexes, those are the only cities on the board, I think. At the beginning of a victory point stage, the PLAN player loses a political will. So his high will comes at a price. He's got to defend Taiwan. Strategically, he's on the defensive here, though, because he's got the higher will this time. He doesn't have to engage. This could end up losing him the game. It's no more than 1 point per turn, even if you cover all those. And then the PLAN player also has reinforcements. Remember, reduction of hand size brings those in. So they come in with an expense. We'll see how that works out. The actual hand size at the beginning of the game is 5 cards for the PLAN and 6 for the US. I guess, I don't know, you're committing extra fuel and resources and such not, so you can't do as much if if you end up bringing the reinforcements in, which is why the hand size drops. It makes sense. There's a lot of abstraction here, but it all kind of makes sort of sense. The surprising thing to me is that the zones of control kind of work well. It's a weird feeling, but yeah, you can't just sail your ships right in plain sight of something else. They will get hammered in a modern war. After dealing out the hand of cards, one thing is I'm going to try not to focus so much on the actual play this time and try to capture a story more. That's more enjoyable to me. I know some of you want to see every little detail, but honestly, I don't know. I'm just not that into doing that. It takes away from my game. One thing I was thinking though with the cards is how they end up kind of directing what your decision is. Once you kind of set up and start looking at your cards, they decide how much you can engage and what kind of effect you can have in the turn. And actually, it reminds me a little bit of, I think I mentioned this in an earlier aspect, the old Avalon Hill attack sub up there. That was a brilliant game. I've had a lot of fun with it. And this has some of the same feel in terms of, because of the way the cards kind of determine what you're going to play. And this whole decreasing on the political will is similar to some of the ways the ships get damaged in that. That's a very abstract game, but more tactical in nature than this. This is more operational. All right, what am I going to do? Well, red has to move first, and they're under no real compunction to close. So I've got some interesting cards. Both sides have recon satellites, which allow them to flip stealth units over. Now, normally, under the basic game, that would mean those units are visible for the rest of the game. So that might be useful to hit like a stack of planes or ships somewhere that you're worried about. Get a, bang, get it off early as your event. Of course, I have other nice events here. Like this one, which reduces the battle dice on defense. And, well, a tactical nuclear strike, but that's so dangerous. You lose a political will. It's an expensive play. However, it can whack a whole stack. Okay, so the U.S. played their operational planning and logistics to up their hand size. National will doesn't decrease in this scenario the way it did in the last one. I was kind of under the impression it did a moment ago. I apologize for the confusion, but my damn movie maker locks my computer when it's doing these high definition videos, and it just causes some issues on my end. This is our initial movement. The Chinese shifted their planes forward, and the U.S. shifted forward a bit, but then they got to operate once there, and then they played this for 3 actions and moved their surface ships and their air units forward here. The goal is to get within range of this with a revealed, eventually, UCAV, so that they can start dropping the Chinese will. Now, when are you allowed to reveal plane? You certainly can if you attack. You can if you're defending. I don't think you're allowed to do it just at will, though. So I may have to launch an attack if I get over there. But this was a weak spot because there are subs here and I can fly through them, and that creates a new issue for the Chinese to deal with. I think the U.S. is going to stop there. They got redraws off the operational. They got to throw away a couple of crap red cards that they had, although this one has a couple of dice on it. You don't want to hold on to that. It was a hard call between that and using the recon satellite, which would have given them a target to hit and start firing right away, but they're planning on doing that next turn. They've moved into range, but at this point now the Chinese have their call, and they're going to probably play this, try to hunt down those planes. That means they can't use this, but, unless they succeed in a search. Oh, this isn't an event. Shit. I could have played this. Yeah, the U.S. may want to detect something so that they can launch attacks. Get a first strike in. Well, I'm going to hold off because I'm not really that close. I'm going to let the Chinese blow search die rolls. Now, they can keep searching as much as they like, but instead of that, they're going to play this and open things up and not used to the search by detecting these. And they find the air units. Now they're going to focus on those and try to shoot down the U.S. Air from Japan here. The Chinese played the recon satellite, and then I started doing all kinds of things like you're used to and said, oh, wait. And instead, the U.S. canceled that. So now the Chinese have to start searching. And the nukes is such a powerful card, I don't want to use it for search. So I'm going to... all my cards are kind of nice. This has a big 3-bid on it. So I'm going to use this one for my search. And I get to roll 2 dice. We haven't done this before, so I'm doing it live. I won't do anything much live. But it's going to be rolling 2 dice for each of these planes. I got to roll less than a 4 on one of the dice for each plane. Okay, this one's revealed. This one's revealed. There's nothing the U.S. can do to hide them with cards. And the final one's revealed. And that'll... I'm going to play a big 3-point card and start launching attacks with that. Japanese launched, or sorry, the Chinese. They're red. They look like the Japanese in certain games, at least. The Chinese launched 3 attacks. They kept this ship hidden. It's a dummy, that's why. But over here, basically using ships first, they stripped away and managed to knock out the fighter planes. And then with just the UCAV there, well, it looked like they had a good shot. But they failed with 2 shots. Of course, they did wipe out the entire U.S. hand, though. They held on, which is not that big a deal. You can draw more cards. They held on to their own precision targeting. This is a nice card. I wanted to use this for its event if I can. I could have launched more attacks on this, but the fact that I didn't search for anything else, that I only found 1 stack by intention. Nice thing, I got rid of the U.S. Satellite card, but no big deal. I've revealed a bunch of stuff that the U.S. can target now. So now we go to the turn cleanup stuff, where I have to worry about maybe finding a base back for these planes. Now, first they get the air movement phase. I don't want to reveal where my carriers are. That makes them big targets. So these planes fly back. Now they do not become hidden again. I've got my gripes with that. This doesn't have to go anywhere. In fact, but it's allowed to. I could slip up to there. The danger with that, though, is... You know, if I close in, I'm going to get shot all off. With the fighters in there, I thought I had a chance of getting in. So I'm going to actually pull this back a little bit. It doesn't actually have to land anywhere. The other Chinese fighters I can leave in the air where I like them, and that'll move us to the next turn. Okay. Unfortunately, video games are very addictive for me, and I had a hard time pulling myself away. I played all day today other than shopping, so I didn't get to play here, but and it's really just an MMO RPG type thing. Not a lot of story or anything, just killing stuff, but I can't pull myself away. All right, so Chinese chose not to do any reinforcements during the movement phase. They kind of pulled back. The US managed to hide their plane. Now they've got kind of a weird situation. They put a dummy down for the plane, and it doesn't really do any good if they keep it stacked. They're moving forward, trying to get into position to do something here. The Chinese not taking the reinforcements is kind of important, just because, well, if they reduced their hand size, they would have a more powerful fleet presence. But I didn't feel like they need that. I feel like they're doing okay right now, having knocked out a couple of the fighters. We'll see how it all turns out. Now, at this point, we enter into the action phase, and it's blues. Blue kind of wants to search, so I'm going to look through my cards, see what I have that'll help me. And I should probably be paying attention to things like that. This is a powerful card. Drops the hand size by 1 of your opponent if you manage to destroy a unit. And just, there's all kinds of cool cards. You only get 1 event though. And outside of that, well, you know, do I want to search? I probably want to find something, but I've got some targets here that if I can knock out some of those ships, you know, at least I'm doing some good as far as I see it. I was mistaken last time. I can kind of remember this. Revealing your stealth markers. You can flip them over, well, if you attack, if you're searched, but you can do it voluntarily, and that looks to be at any time. So I can do that just before the victory point phase. You know what? I have a kind of cool event here. Ordered units may move next to enemy units without stopping, and even through enemy-occupied hexes. This is up to 4 different units. I can use this to slip some of my planes into play. That'll give away where my carriers are, but that's okay. I have at least 1 here of the UCAVs, but I can throw more in, and that forces the Chinese then to do something to prevent their special effect, which will reduce their will by a point if they don't eliminate it. I could just slip the 1 unit in, or the 2 units. Of course, they're stacked together, so yeah, that was dumb to stack them. You know what? I'm not going to have them stacked. That way I can activate them separately here and send them in. I ended up revealing my carriers must be here and here. I don't generate any dummies, but I've got 4 planes. 1 is in a target hex. The others aren't, but that's okay, because before the victory phase, where this takes place, I get the air unit movement phase. And these guys, when they're flipped over, they still don't need support, so I can use them for, you know, whatever role they're playing there. I think it's just photography of what's going on, to tell you the truth. But so that's the U.S. Event. Now the question is, well, what can I do to wipe out a couple of those units that are out there? Let me make sure I don't have any non-event cards here that I could use in reaction. I do not. All right. I selected the first big 3-point card for the U.S. and basically, after their event, they slid 3 groups into play to attack this. They took down 1 destroyer. There's another one almost ready to go under. That's tempting to shoot for. I also have some very long-range fire capable from the CGX here. That's missile carriers or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think it's not gonna be able to reach this, and I haven't set up. And it's not going to be able to reach this, and I haven't set up a situation whereby I didn't search, so all I've got is kind of this stack in range. I could have shot at this, but now I don't think I have the capability. These subs are both fakes. The Chinese player knows that, but he can't do anything about them because they're on the board and they're generating zones of control as it stands. So the question really comes down to, does the U.S. want to throw a 2-point card in order to finish off that ship? And I think they're going to. They can't launch any more fighters from these, I don't think. Although they're in new hexes now. There's this sort of complexity here if you move anything out of... So if things are in a hex, well... See, these fighters were not in the hexes that they're in now. That's kind of the weird thing. So there's a rule in the game that if you move if you move anything in an eligible stack like fighters. Now I don't know if these are an eligible stack. The whole landing and everything like that is a little twisted, but I just don't feel like they should be able to launch a fighter strike now after having already committed to a plane action. I'm not absolutely sure though if that's how it works. How is it written? You cannot issue an order to one type of unit in a hex and then issue an additional order to another type of unit in the same hex. That's the restriction there. And now, let's see. I want to see about carriers and how they operate. See, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in new hexes, so I think I could launch a fighter strike, actually. Yeah, as far as the rules are written. So I can fire off, actually, 2 sets of fighters if I want it. Now, fighters are best against planes, so we'll see. Because maybe it's better for me to try to take out some of the Chinese air power instead. I'm not sure. I kind of like shooting the ship, though, so maybe I'll keep some of my fighters in their carrier. So the U.S. Moved their missile cruiser into place and launched a shot. That didn't do anything, so then they scrambled their fighters and hit. Now, here's the problem. Here's what I wanted to say and didn't bother to. There's this really, really taxing in terms of emotions, trying to maybe calculate when you can't. Just mental decision making here in terms of whether or not to use a card. So the Chinese kept throwing their cards for defense. Now they're down to 1 card. They can't search. That's okay. They don't have enough cards. They can only issue 2 orders. They don't have enough, even if they had kept this big attack card or this big number of dice card to do a search. They don't have enough dice, enough cards after throwing defensive cards to be able to wipe out this entire force. So now they're going to play this as their event, the precision targeting, which gives them I think this is for all ordered units, not just the ones from this card, which would be powerful to hold a bunch of cards, but it gives them an additional chance to hit, hitting on 3s and up instead of 4s and up, and try to look for some target. That target may be these F-35Cs. They look easier to pick off. They take 1 hit each, as opposed to the SSN, which would take 2 hits and has the same defense. The difference, though, is it means I won't scramble my planes against it because my planes actually will give them extra dice in defense, and that could be bad for me. So as long as I'm standing off and firing at them, though, I've got some advantages, so I think I'll launch that attack. Now the U.S. kept themselves a card, presumably for defense. I don't know. This is kind of a waste to use this card for defense, but on the other hand, if you do, you get a full hand of cards back. So maybe that die of defense will come in handy. The Chinese come up empty. The planes was just too big a risk, so I used this guy who has a bonus against planes, got him a 3rd die. And the U.S. did use its defensive card there, and then I threw these destroyers into play to fire at them as well. Now we're in the cleanup phase. Aircraft have to... I never bothered to move these suckers. That was dumb. All right. Aircraft have to rebase. I can move them now. And then... Blue gets to send its planes. And we're gonna send one down there. I'm allowed 3 planes in a hex, huh? pile up there. I'll reveal this because that'll give me the national will bonus. My other planes, these have to find their way back to a carrier. I don't know if they actually have to land on it. They have to be in the same hex as it. I'll just send them back here. Now they're revealed. And stacking's good. Victory point. Well, at this point the Chinese will goes down by 1. And we refresh the hands. And I plug my camera back in. I wonder what this card does. Oh well, I guess it's a blank. I'll pull it out of the play and fill out the rest of the hand. But it's kind of funny. I wasn't expecting that. I haven't seen a blank card in a Victory Point Games game yet. It's kind of cool. You know, if you lose or damage a card, it gives you a replacement if you need it, or if there's some kind of cool, option or something you come up with. Because I wouldn't want to tinker with the game too much because I think the decks have been carefully tooled. One suspects. Basically, that's my thought. You know, back when I first got into wargaming, my thought was, these games are so carefully designed to manage to, accurately capture the history. And I kind of said, yeah, I don't think they really are. I think there's some degree of it, but to tell you the truth, a lot of it is personal feelings about the battle, and a lot of times there's mistakes on what's clear factual information. So obviously they don't have that captured right. They probably haven't balanced the game absolutely perfectly in most cases. Usually Victory Point Games does a pretty good job though. So although, like I said, the rules are a little bit fuzzier than they are in some of the games. I got no problem with that. I got the hard decision. There's so many in this game on, hey, do I want to bring a reinforcement in? I looked in the rules. Doesn't seem like you're not restricted as to which reinforcement group you pick. So, I could take subs or planes or boats. The boats are kind of interesting because they come with these DDGs that are good against air power. And that's somewhat appealing. If I look at what I have, my one ship that I have here is connected with the aircraft carrier. I might want to bring one in, but the idea of losing hand size, when honestly I have more than enough ships on the board to kind of do what I need to do, but those extra cards give me extra dice in combat. I'd be throwing that away. I'd be throwing away opportunities to move things because the ops points are also what you use things for. So it strikes me that unless you feel like you have a dire need for more pieces, you probably don't want to take this. Of course, if you get your hand size up near your max, well, then maybe it's worthwhile. But at this point, I have kind of a low hand size. So we'll go on to the movement. Again, this feels kind of like one of those old style land games where the geometry of the positioning of your pieces becomes very, very important, setting up your zones, etc. In this case, I've flown some Chinese planes around the back to prevent the escape of the UCAV here. I've kind of got to knock those suckers out. I haven't moved the US completely yet. I moved most of their ships, but I want to move some of their planes because I want to spread these suckers out so that the Chinese can't just wipe out a whole stack of them at once. I want to make them expend lots of search attempts if they want to hunt down my entire squadron. Otherwise, I lose my advantage of being able to deal with the will, and it just becomes a pure combat scenario. I'm not sure the US can't win the pure combat scenario. It's hard to tell. I mean, you see, trade-off wise, they've taken a couple of ships down. Now, the planes are more powerful, but easier to recuperate and less valuable. Easier to recuperate because there are cards that allow you to take planes back and stuff, like these. You see the Ka-29s have flown over one of these things. What I haven't done is I haven't launched all my carrier-based air yet. Kind of holding off on that. One of the issues is as holes open up, those become more impressive. So we got subs in the front line. They're not going to block anything, but I can't get through the holes where there are ships and planes here because those guys have zones of control. So now we go to the blue action phase, and I got to decide what the hell to do with them. Blue phase, I forgot I can hide planes and, in fact, the SSNs. So I did that. I can hide the UCAVs. And, you know, it just presents a mess for the communists to try to deal with, because every turn these are going to sneak in and hit something if I don't wipe them out. So I don't know what I'm going to have to cope with them. Meanwhile, the U.S. fleets, I'm choosing what card to play. I'm playing this intelligence card. Give me another hand size drop, push me up to 8. And then I get another card. I get a new card to replace this one. And then I get to play an activity card for its effect. Now, this is a powerful card any way you use it, but I wanted to push my hand size up here. Now, for the card that I'm going to play, I think I'm going to play the precision targeting, which gives me 2 orders. And for the rest of the turn, it appears my units that are attacking are going to hit on 3s. So you know, I'll be able to launch some attacks, and then I'll keep a decent. I can keep a decent amount of cards for defense if the Chinese decide that they have an effective attack. My thinking with blue was, first I was thinking about using these planes to try to clear this out of the way, but then I realized, wait, if I get this out of the way, I can fly my planes in and try to take out the Chinese planes, which are the most effective, basically, at least for the amount of hits they can take, against my UCAVs. So I launched 2 ship attacks with the precision targeting card. Now I'm going to keep this here to remind me that those die roll effects are in play for the rest of the turn. I also threw a bunch of extra dice into play. The Chinese didn't throw any defensive dice in. They felt completely handcuffed last turn after having played all their defensive cards. They want to be able to search and kill some of these planes. So we've got a lot of damage against our ships. Remember, in the advanced game, ships take 3 hits. But now the U.S. has to play more cards to try to clear those guys out of the way, so they have a window to send their planes in. Turns out I miscalculated. I managed to clear them out using one of my fighter strike groups. But this other one, oh no, if I flip them over, I can move full speed. I was thinking they were speed 4. So this group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gets into range. I don't have to worry about zones. Those are just subs there. And now I've got 2, 4, 6 dice against 4 dice with my advantage. Now, at this point, the Reds are beginning to feel the pressure as their units are falling apart. The question, of course, is, and I could have played this to cancel that event. I probably wanted to. But, you know, it's a tough call what kind of defenses I want here. The U.S. has a bunch of dice in play. So do the Reds. The Reds know that they're safe right now. Probably one die result cards are sufficient for searches against these. So I can do 2 to 3 searches, but I'm going to lose a will just because the U.S. is going to be able to land another plane in place. So the question then becomes, with my lower odds, do I want to try to protect these planes or just let them die? You can see my chart's filling up. Yeah, I just don't feel like I can afford to protect them. I feel like I need some combat, some attack capability. However, I am running out of units to play. Maybe I need my reinforcements. I have this air group here, though, and this air group. So that should give me enough. I think I'm going to hold my card. US manages to wipe out those last planes. At this point, they're going to stop and hand things over to the Chinese. They still got cards, which they can keep for defense. Basically, they've only got one ship that they could declare. They've got this sub here. Well, they've got the UCAVs, but they don't want to do that. They've got one ship they can declare. That would cost them a card. And then, yes, it's got a decent attack value, but they might want to throw an extra die in or might not. The chance of actually getting a hit is pretty low at this point. It might be nice. The only thing I can see targeting is this DDG. With a dummy under it, chances are with a hidden unit under it, chances are that's a dummy. So it's worth taking a shot for. Now the Chinese have to do some search. All but one of their cards, they had one failed search. And did three successful searches. They got rid of a dummy counter and they found 2 UCAVs. I don't know how many there are for the US. I think there's 3 on the board, which means one of these 2 is real, one's a dummy. I'm going to lose my national will. I could have gotten lucky. But now I have to launch an attack. This is going to give me 3 operations, so I can probably clear out these 2, and then I can see, hey, what else do I want to do? We succeeded in clearing out quite a few planes, the 2 UCAVs, and a couple of these fighters here. Remember, they take up half a box each in the advanced rolls. I can't be too unhappy with that, using basically 1 card for attack. I got quite a few hits, and the US didn't have much defense there. But now we go to the air return phase, and we'll pull these back here, and these guys will go fly over the carrier. There's not room with the K-29 there. Yeah, there's not room there. Uh-oh. I may be in trouble. Send 1 here, 1 here. This is not how I want my planes to. And 1 up here. Now the US gets to send its planes back, and all we got left is 1. We'll land it on one of my carriers. Which one is this? This is my CVN. And the US will reveal. Oh, we get to move these. We'll reveal one of these. Pull this one down here. Ooh, these guys better land somewhere too. They too will end up on the same carrier. That leaves them stacked. They're a more powerful force if they're all stacked together, offensively and defensively for that matter. That costs the Chinese a national will, and we can see they're kind of struggling and running out of units. Now they've got their reinforcements, but that costs them the ability to act effectively. All right. I think we're going to send this one up because I think we got a decent amount of play left. At this point, I got to deal out the hands, and that's it.